This is Liberating Faith, a SheLoves podcast. We are a chorus of voices creating space and weaving together the world we long for, a world that starts with love. This is for people who walk in a faith that remembers God is love. This is for people who want to live out a faith rooted and grounded in love. And as Maya Angelou reminds us, love liberates. Liberating Faith invites you into conversations, stories, and perspectives from around the globe. SheLoves has always been about creating both safe and brave spaces on the internet, inviting a chorus of voices to create culture together. We embrace an anti-racist faith, a decolonizing faith, a feminist faith, an affirming faith, because we are liberated together. Here, may you feel rooted and grounded in love. May you be expanded in your listening. May something in you become a little more unbound. May something in you soften. May you find what you are looking for now. This is Liberating Faith. Welcome.
Well, friends, SheLoves community, I am so grateful to be with my friend Tina Francis-Mutungu today. Hi.
Hi. This is so weird. I feel like I have this double feeling. One is just like, oh, hi, friend. And then the other piece is this ring light that's in my face. And I'm like, welcome to the Sunday night news. So I have like two pieces going.
Yes, I know.
Which self am I right now? I'll just try.
All of the self, the whole self, right? We've been doing the work. Yeah. Well, when we started talking about what to do with our Liberating Faith podcast, I just knew you and I needed to have a conversation. Because from the beginning, you have been an integral part of just this unfolding. And just even, you've always seen me and seen SheLoves. Like maybe it's just write that. You've seen me, and you've seen SheLoves, and you've seen it in its kind of embryonic state. And you saw the essence of it. And so I've walked with that and, found your own becoming. And yet I'm so grateful we're still walking in friendship, right? So in this larger story of what does it mean to be a person who loves, right? And so today I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the context of what is SheLoves, who is SheLoves, like what is the ethos of SheLoves? And then also just like so that we have an understanding of what the context is in which we're having this conversation of liberating faith, right? And just what does that liberating faith mean to you? How have you seen that in the SheLoves context? And just just you and I talking about what does it mean to follow a God who liberates? And so there we are. So okay, I'm Idelette.
Nice and specific.
Right. Yeah. We'll probably
try.
We'll do. And I also just know there's just like this sacred space between us, and that unfolds when we're together. And I know, like, I just want people to hear your heart and your words, and so just here we are. I'm sitting on the unceded territories of the Kwantlen, the Semiahmoo, and the Stolo peoples. And I want to acknowledge that and ground us as we hold our bodies in these spaces and hold space for those who listen as well, right?
I'm in Seattle, so I'm on the Duwamish tribe land, and it is a tender thing because it's one of the tribes that have not been recognized by the government. but the Duwamish people were here, acknowledge that and honor their history with the land. Yeah.
So Tina, do you want to just tell people a little bit of your story, actually? Just what is something that you want people to know about Tina?
Because my literal geographical dots move so much, I feel like I'll just give a geographical overview first. Just like, so I'm Indian, but I was born in the Middle East, Dubai, did all of my high school there, and then that dot moved to North America, where I did university in Canada I moved out here when I was, I don't know, 18. Then my family immigrated shortly after that. And so I was in Dubai for about 17 years. Then I was in Canada for about 17 years. And then in 2016, I moved to Seattle with my husband, who is Zambian, and did a similar sort of trajectory. He was born in Zambia, lived in Canada from the ages 2 to 8, then moved back to Zambia, then moved back to North America. And somehow we met in Portland while you were there. So we like zigzag all over the place, and somehow it connects to SheLoves. And the reason why it does, for many reasons, but it, we couldn't find the right words for it. I'm sure there's a better way to say it, but we'd always say, like, you have future eyes, Idelette. And part of that was that I met you in a season where I was in a rough place. It's a really rough place. I had come out of a toxic relationship and was grieving, and was also grieving the financial crisis that was happening in Canada, because my parents had a little video store and Blockbuster had just declared bankruptcy. And so I was like the eldest immigrant daughter in Canada, working a job that she didn't love, but did because she loved her family to support them financially. So I was just in a very disoriented, like the sort of the sober part of adulthood phase of my life. And the word or the mantle of like being responsible it still is a big deal, but it was really heavy. It was a heavy thing to bear at that time. And at that time, I was also really seeing how costly the sacrifice of moving to Canada was for my parents, how costly it was for their identity, how costly it was for their self-esteem. And so it was this weird switch where like, I needed to, you kind of become not your parents' parent, but you are sharing the load with them. But part of that is you're feeling the suffering with them, right? You're not the child and your parents are telling you, it's okay. You are very much in it with them. So I met you in that place where my family was struggling. I was struggling personally. I was trying to find my footing in the North American church, whatever that meant. I grew up Catholic, so that's the other piece of the backstory. I was in this non-denominational church, and it was hard for my family, right? So I was very aware that I was kind of breaking the responsibility piece, being there at the time and not at the Catholic church where they attended. So it was a weighty time, not necessarily fully bad, because there's lots of laughs and stuff, but it was weighty. It was very much going from like childhood to adulthood. And I think the original connection piece was probably immigration, right? Like you were an immigrant, I was an immigrant, and there was just a gravitational pull. I think that is just maybe the first level of belonging, is whether you like it or not, it helps to have some identification overlap. Right. Sure, we can do these things in the heart, but there was just facts, right? That this was not your home to start with.
Right. But also I think it's that idea of understanding that you belong to there's this big world,
right?
And I think we've both tasted and felt out of sorts and know what it means to kind of figure out your identity in a world, not in a small way. Right. Like to ask the hard questions and to wrestle with that. Right. Yeah.
And I guess for me, from how I remember it, was I was meeting you in a sort of transitional period yourself. You've been a journalist, you were doing an online magazine of sorts, but you weren't able to quite put your finger on it. You were close, you were humming, you were buzzing, but there was a lot of frustration and like not, you know, because you're like, the journalism piece is already done. So then what am I doing? Because it was like around good news, right?
Yeah.
Kind of right, that you were looking for contributors. And so that's where to come full circle, that's where the Future Eyes piece comes, is that like one day you just kind of said like, hey, like I learned so much from the women around me, so why shouldn't they be writing? I was like, maybe because they're not writers. It's one thing to talk about it over coffee. It's another thing to write about it online, right? So I think that I was one of those friends that you were just like really affirmed in that, just sort of saying like, no, you have valuable thoughts. I know writing is hard, but please try, because I think there's something here. And so I tried, but it was so basic in that like to start with, I couldn't say that I was writing an article because that was too intimidating. So I said I'd write a list of 5 things that are making me happy or something beautiful that I've seen this week. And curation seemed a lot less scary than writing, quote unquote. But you know, slowly the intro paragraph to the list started getting bigger and the list started getting smaller. And at one point there was no list. So, but it was that sort of like middle becoming place. SheLoves was a becoming thing, but so were the people in it. So some of that, like most becoming things, we can look back and cringe. And some of that we can look back and be like, with a graceful heart, be like, but look where we are now. Like, look who I am now. Look at what it's becoming. It's just a becoming.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It always has been that becoming space, right? And just to kind of see people, like, I think, there's so many people in that space where you're like, but I see you. I see what's going on inside I hear how you're expressing yourself and the thoughts you have and the stories you have to tell. And man, this needs to be heard. Other people need to hear that. And then I think we were just so blown away what ended up coming out of you, right? Like with the whole TGIF weekly Friday series, and people were like, all of a sudden, like, we're waiting for this. We can't wait to hear what Tina has to say this week. It was just so beautiful. It was such a beautiful season.
It was a very stretching season. It was a season where that was my sort of bright spot of me in all of the adulting that I was doing. Right. And I thought about your question around liberating faith, but the word liberating love felt more true for me. Like I've never really used faith, even though I've always been a church person. I've always found discomfort around spiritual language outside of like story, but liberating love has felt so real for me because I was loved in your living room, and because love asked me to write something, I said yes, fine. Did I love the thing I was doing? Not really. Did I have to trust the love? Sure. And then a third thing came from that thing, but it was like love, right? But like also like love, there were the sort of growths and spurts of like, because nothing is static. The magazine is growing, you're growing, I'm growing. Somewhere in there, I met my husband. Somewhere in there, I became a mom. Somewhere in there, I allowed myself to be labeled as a writer or be even called that without sort of deflecting. And there's just a lot of life there. But that becoming piece is what was really precious for me about SheLoves then and still now, is that it was a risky space. And it was a space that I was not numb in. It was an awake space, right? Because everything in my life, I had to be eldest daughter Tina, be mining firm assistant manager Tina, be whatever, you know, like be the good role model older sister Tina. And this was truly, if I'm being honest, is like, who is Tina? I just kind of didn't, life just kind of layered to the point where I was like, I can't write, lady. This lady wants me to write, but like, who is writing? Who is the voice?
Right?
You know, like, so I had to do this like inner journey, like, knock, who's in there? Your parents aren't here, so who's in there?
Yeah.
And what's happening? And so it was like it was self-discovery, but it was like doing self-discovery in community. And from a spiritual place, I have to share this because I can't quite articulate it this way, but what I think was happening locally and to me was I was waking up.
Yeah.
I was just waking up, and being asleep or being numb had me so unhappy, but also had me so numb that I didn't even know how unhappy I was. I just thought, this is it. Life is life, you know? And I read, I'm doing this book study, Wild Mercy, Mirror by Star.
Yeah.
And at the very back of the book, she talks about what awakening is. It's so beautiful. Can I read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. As it turns out, to awaken mostly means to, get this, live with compassion and wisdom. I was like, that sounds like SheLoves. Rest in our interconnectedness with all beings. I was like, yes. Recognizing the truth of suffering, which was very much, we were in that.
Yeah.
And dedicating ourselves to alleviating it wherever we encounter it. And then this part was like, awakening is our birthright.
Come on.
I was like,
wow.
Whoa, that, you know, I think I didn't even know as a possibility, but that the 20s were very much an awakening. It was all these things. So SheLoves was that, you know, ecosystem.
Right. Yes.
Where we could do that. We could practice these things. So if we weren't awake, someone else was waking up. If we weren't living with compassion, someone else was modeling that. If I didn't know how to rest in interconnectedness, I would watch somebody receive and be rejuvenated by that. So it was just a holding space to awaken, to wake up. And I think when it truly started becoming about the inside work, at least for me, I at that point wasn't really worried about who else is reading. Because I was like, it matters to these 4 people.
Yeah,
Something is happening to us. And thank God. And it felt like that felt so big. That felt like a mountain. 4 people waking up or 5 people waking up. And so it was sort of slow, but it felt urgent and important. And I didn't exactly know how it was happening. But I think that's why when I read this, I was like, I think it was a combination of trying to live in compassion and wisdom, resting in our interconnectedness, recognizing the truth of suffering for each other, right? We did that for each other. And then dedicating ourselves to alleviating it whenever we can. So it wasn't like linear. It wasn't like, hey, I made a fun for you, but it was like, okay, today I'll listen. Tomorrow I'll pour you some rooibos tea. Then I'll drop off some bread. And then I'll edit your, I don't know, piece that is so late. It is 3 a.m., you know, but it's here and I'm here. And it was very much like a birthing.
Yeah.
It was like not shiny. But it was so real. It was so it was like we said, the pulse. There was a pulse that it was awake. And then when multiple people's pulses were starting to awake, then I think it became a vibration.
Yeah.
And whatever it became after that. But I think because I was in that entry point level, I just remember waking up and then holy crap, if other people are waking up, and holy crap, okay, now we're a magazine. So apparently people are noticing in like Uganda and England and whatever, you know.
Right.
It wasn't, I at least couldn't start that way. It was an inward journey that kind of overflowed a little bit. And then we got to receive from each other as that happened. But liberating love to me felt like how it was happening, was receiving that love.
I love that. I think that's, you know, I think that's who we've always been. Like that was always the intention behind SheLoves. I was always kind of at the core was, I believe love, if we truly live a life of love, we truly follow that, and yes, we're going to mess that up. If we truly do that, and then we don't, it's not wishy-washy love. It's not saccharine. It has teeth, right? Like it's like seeing suffering, right? It's like, but love moves towards suffering, and love knows suffering, and love, I don't know, is in suffering.
But also love, you know, when we think about it, I mean, the sort of commercial version of love is you immediately think of like a pink font and like happy Gap colors or something, right? But if we thought about our 5 truest loves, from our children to our parents to our spouse to maybe a good friend, it's so messy.
Yeah.
Like real love is teeth. It's the sort of feeling that love should somehow be easy and liberating. To me, literally, I don't see someone standing free. I see someone like literally removing stuff to open up the hands, right? So when you combine love, which is already kind of like greedy, messy, I'm in it, to me, liberating and love almost sound like the same word. Like love is liberation, liberation is love, because if it weren't, neither would be the thing.
And that's what Maya Angelou says, and she says love liberates.
Oh, there you go. She said it. There you go, right? I'm like, I'm trying to land the plane. I feel it. I just don't. Oh, someone said it. Good. Maya.
You're right. Like that's it. Like love liberates, in those two, the dance and the you're right. It's not.
And sometimes it is not just as seamless and elegant as a dance, because someone else's liberation sometimes costs us. So we have to articulate, hey man, I see you trying to liberate yourself, but my liberation isn't here. Right. And so to be honest, here's why I know like that real thing that was in SheLoves is still happening. Even though I'm not as present at the moment, is because I was intuiting or whatever, had reached a point where I was like, my liberation requires me to turn outward now. It's scary. I don't actually know what's out there, but our friendship and my liberation and my sanity requires me, my growing requires me to step outside the circle. I like knowing the circle exists, but I have to do this.
Right.
And at, you know, those crossroad moments or threshold moments, whatever, are just scary because you don't know. I guess that's when you figure out if your relationship is real, like what it's made of. Like, is this a real friendship or is it a proximity friendship? Proximity friendships are lovely, but when the proximity isn't there, then you're like, okay, now am I alone? Or do I still feel tethered by that animating force that I'm not in the middle of right now, but just knowing that it exists helps me continue to become, you know? And the motherhood piece, for some reason, when I birthed Ezra, I think I birthed myself too. So I just have not been myself since then. I don't feel as confident. I don't feel I feel more raw. I mean, it's good. It's very good, but it's liberation is messy. So I suddenly, I think I had a edgy maybe voice on SheLoves, but it was, there was a lot of levity there too, right? I'm not saying those things are separate, but there was a lot of levity. And what I sensed was that I sensed I had to descend into lament.
Yeah.
I just had to do that. And it was private and that was not for public consumption, but that was no bearing on the friendship. But I was worried that it might appear that like there's a divergence. But I was like, that same question that happened like 10 years, the first 10 years of SheLoves, where I was like, yeah, you want me to write a column, but who is Tina? Right. I think what happened was after about 10 years, I was like, who is Tina 2.0? Like I had to do the next unearthing and to kind of see, honestly, there was a first circle of the first, I don't know what the word is. It's the first group of sisters or whatever. Many people seemed at that time to be being like, I have to go do my work. I have to move outward. And it seemed like there was a fresh flow of new people that were showing up who were also doing their liberating love work. But then like, what is SheLoves if some of the familiar faces are gone, and what is it when new people are coming? And then we'll see, what does it become? What does it become when these new people are becoming? Does it still have the thread, or is it a different thread? Both are fine. But I felt like SheLoves more often than not got it right than wrong, because liberating love liberating was always necessary. And whenever it wasn't working, it was frankly just data. It was just, liberation might need to look different now. There's a growth spurt. We hit a ceiling. Like now it needs to look like this. Now, I mean, I don't know how much the language has gone, but I mean, we were like, we're a magazine called SheLoves, and we are changing how we think about gender. We're changing how we think about love. We're changing how we think about sexuality and pronouns. And so what is SheLoves? SheLoves is becoming, what is love? What is she? What is Tina? What is Idelette? Like, what is? But there's still a pulse, because there's still the examining of the small and the large. Who am I in what the world is becoming right now? What does love look like inside? What does love look like outside? And if I don't love myself in this new place, I won't have any of it to give. So if I can't love myself, thankfully the community allows for some of that love. Because actually not loving ourselves is a suffering. I think it's the worst kind of suffering. And some of the most powerful writing for me, or experience for me on SheLoves, has been someone articulating their struggle to love themselves. Because we had women who were definitely twos on the Enneagrams, right? Because we're socialized to be twos. Whether we were true twos or not, we were so many helpers. But as we started to get real and more real and more real, we realized like we had double standards. We had a standard for love for the world and what we thought the world deserved. And we had a standard for ourselves, much lower standard, right? It wasn't one of liberation. But sorry, were you going to say something?
I'm just listening.
No. I am feel free to jump in. But like I feel like every time I watch someone like do the metaphorical looking in the mirror of like, why don't I love myself? Why don't I allow myself this small freedom, small victory, small joy, small whatever, like that? It was so heartbreaking to witness that. in somebody else, that then you have to be like, if I can feel how untrue this, like how desperately I want this person to love themselves and how beyond worthy of love they are, then logically speaking, this has to be true for me. Like I have to infer this. I don't feel it, but everything is pointing towards that continual liberating love. And it would be very hypocritical, frankly, not even hypocritical. Hypocritical is judgmental, but let's say it would be unsustainable to not liberate ourselves in the process, because we wouldn't know what the heck we were doing.
But I think that's when we talk about the mutuality as well, right? It's not just if I'm loving somebody else, how can I not love myself? Like there is a mutual, like, because otherwise this person, like we have to fill ourselves up with love in order to pour out love too, right? And that liberating love is for ourselves too, right? So it's that actualization. It is that becoming. It is the mirror, like when you see it in your friend or in another person or in another writer or in the community, right? Or you see it in the world. Like I think, and around the same time when you had to kind of do your work, kind of cross over into a new threshold, kind of we went kind of in too, because we needed to do more work, and we were looking at the mirror of the world, and also the mirror of the church, and like, oh, we need to figure out what is language for this time, what is language for who we are and what we believe. And it apparently is not what everybody else believes. We thought we were talking about the same things, and it appears we are not. Like when we say justice, what does that actually mean?
What is sisterhood? What is church? What is...
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so just to kind of get clear and kind of just make it small, it's almost like we just needed to figure like that the glue between us and the that trust. I think also there was a lot of trust, I think, that eroded for like in the larger story. And I think we needed to just work, like in our leadership team, we just worked very hard on building trust in the small everyday kind of ways, right? Just to like, okay, if we want to have big conversations, the small conversations need to also reflect deep love, earning trust, earning like, or creating, figuring out language, right? So it's been this season, right?
Postcard. Oh, sorry, friend. Have you seen this postcard this week from Tressie? She's a MacArthur Genius Award winner. She created this like postcard series that she's selling on Instagram, and it literally says the institution, something like the institution will never love you.
Yeah,
it's the whole postcard and in these different designs. And I think what was happening with SheLoves was there's so many institutions, right? Like there's corporate, there's capitalism, there's church, there's civic society, there's schools, there's all these things that we hold as pillars. But the institution is not liberating love. The institution is just a structure.
Right.
We are the animating force that fills up the institution. So I think it was yet again another point where we were like, we're asking, what is us in church? What am I in community? What am I in this marriage? What am I as a parent? What am I as it relates to climate? Like, not like what is climate and what am I, but like I'm in it. I'm a vessel. I'm a caretaker. I'm in the flow of this thing. So while the institution is not me, I am in the institution. So what do? I am part of it, and I have to critique it. And the love piece for me specifically, friend, I said the one piece where I see an article of someone who doesn't, trying to love themselves. But the other suffering that was actually even more potent was looking in the eyes of someone who was suffering because they were seeing you not love yourself. So like there were times where I look in your eyes and your eyes are misty because you can see how badly I'm suffering because I won't love myself. That is very compelling, because even if I'm not inclined to help myself, I'm inclined to make your misty eyes stop misting, at least for the bad reasons, right? I mean, I want it to mist for joy and all those things.
Yeah.
I don't want you to suffer. And then I realized that like my suffering is macro suffering, right? Like if I am suffering, there's no way you won't suffer. And if we both are suffering, there's no way that the city won't suffer. And if the city is suffering, like, you know, and that's where that Ubuntu piece that we talked about, and it's still like a very mysterious word for me, because when I don't know what to say, like when my language has like, when I've reached the limits of my language, I'm like, you know, Ubuntu, because I understand the essence of it. Like
Right.
it says more, because you are, I am, because I am, there you are. The I and thou, like Martin Buber says, like it's just it. I may not be moved on my behalf, but I can be moved on your behalf for my behalf. You know, it sounds woo-woo, or it sounds like cyclical, but it was this like weird thing that was somehow happening in the backdrop of this community. Like I said, it was a ecosystem where we were, it was like a lab. We're just trying it out.
I think the word when you were, you know, those two words, animating force, I think that just really dropped for me, because like dropped into this deep place, because I think what
That's Krista Tippett, by the way. She says that a lot.
okay. So what if we truly ask, what is the animating force? And I think I was always hoping it would be love for people, right? Like, is the animating force love? And that's what draws us together in this space. But we did see, I have seen like the animating force is not always love. Sometimes the animating force is because I want to have a position, or I want to have a place, or I want to get my thing out there. And I'm like, oh, that's not how this unfolds.
Or I'm scared.
Right. And it's
very small, but I'm scared.
Right. Or just anyway. So I just love that idea of like the animating force. Is the animating force love?
Or fear. Yeah.
Right. Is it love or is it fear? I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And but to really, and what does that look like when the animating force behind the work that is being done is love? Then I would hope then the fruit, right? Hopefully is also the fruit of what love bears, right? So yeah, I love that. Just and just in this context too, right?
Yeah.
And I think then if the animating force is love, then love liberates.
Then
right?
yeah.
Love liberates. And then also like, so then we think about it in the terms of, and I think that's the thing that has compelled my faith, right? So we're saying liberating faith, but really, yeah, liberating faith, liberating love. It's
love and action, it's faith, is inspiration.
Not separate. It's not separate, right? Like, and my faith is, that's, I don't know, like that's the, if it's not liberating, like why? It's almost like right, like the faith that liberates and that just unties, right? Like keeps untying.
Like that, to me, that's why like the Mirror by Star thing, I was like, oh, like living with compassion, resting in interconnectedness, recognizing suffering, alleviating that burden when we can for ourselves and each other, right? Just like it is awake. It is it is like, to me, it reminds me of like, you know, by design, we are just running at half capacity or 10% of who we are. It's not that we're not running. It's not that we're not animated. But God, it's a slog. And God, it's like, I need to refuel with like food and Netflix and, you know, because that kind of that version of myself is like, the numbness and the asleep part of my soul is so sad and so tired and so not alive, not awake. that like, even when I'm loving people from that sad place, it is still something. But God, I love better when I'm awake and love myself and allow myself to be loved.
Yeah. Or when we're held in love, in this large expansive love creator, right? So yeah. And I don't think these are all, they're all, it's all interconnected, right?
I think the one thing that SheLoves definitely had to face, much like the world had to face, but I think faith spaces in general had to face is, like the do unto others as you would do unto yourself. I think we had an addendum in this last couple of years that in our consciousness that arrived, like, don't do unto me what you would do unto yourself. Ask me how I would like to be loved. There's this like whole layer of consent that I don't think it defeats the original message. I think it's just more, we got more color. And when I say do unto others, like, or love others like you would like you love yourself, is like, wouldn't you love to be loved the way that you want to be loved and not loved the way somebody else said it, And so I think that's where some of this stuff, this political stuff, the chaos has been around. I want to love you the way that I decided I'd love you 30 years ago. And why can't love just be love? But love is an evolving, expansive thing. And so now love, we are realizing and owning up to the language of, I'm sorry, I never asked you how you wanted to be loved. I'm sorry that whole time I was suffocating with you with, how I like to be loved, and how would you like to be loved? Oh, you don't know how you'd like to be loved. Okay, I'm here in the meantime. I'm sorry if I screw up. Just tell me I'm screwing up, but just know that it's love,
Yeah, I love it.
That's the work now. I feel like part 2.0 is that work. Like, I can't assume what love is. I have to ask you. And if you don't know, I'll hold space while you figure it out.
I love it. I love that. I love that. Yes. Oh, yes.
Did we talk about SheLoves? I don't know.
I think you talk about the ethos of what.
No, I'm just laughing because
I know.
In such a roundabout way.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what I want to talk about. Is this space that we've created, or that we hold, or that I know that I long for, right? And what does this space require of me, right? Or what is, like, I think in what does God require of me? What does justice require of me, right? And I love that. We simply ask as well, right? Not just assume. And
I'm frustrated because I think that not helping or makes us feel so small and scared when we can't help.
But who does that serve? Who does that serve? Right? Like, I think that's what we're looking with, like, like the white saviorism, right?
Oh, right.
Right? Like, I was thinking in that context of, if I'm serving you because I need to feel good, that's not love, right? And that's out of selfish. And then if I'm imposing my assumptions about what that looks like, right? What were you thinking about?
Sorry, because I was going to say, because I wasn't white, I wasn't thinking about that.
Oh, because I'm white, I was thinking about that.
Because I am not white, I was thinking about the fact, I was just thinking about my marriage. I was thinking about my parenting. I was thinking about the terrible twos, and the reason why we call kids when they're in that space the terrible twos is because they start to say no, right? We don't like their no. They suddenly have to give consent. First, I could just smush you and kiss you and jiggle you and tickle you. And now you're saying, no, I don't want to go that way. I want to go this way. Right. And what do we call it? The terrible twos. So terrible, this child is not giving me their full permission. And I now have to get consent. How tedious and exhausting it is. That's what I was thinking about. And I was thinking, that is the reclaiming of our personhood, our love design, our returning to resetting our settings, feels like not calling it terrible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Our consent is not terrible. It is the love. It is the liberation. How wonderful to be cuddled when your baby runs to you.
Yeah.
Versus when you're like,
You choose, right?
I mean, so many of us have tried to put a diaper on a kid that doesn't want to have the diaper on. How terrible to pin their thighs down with our thighs and hold them down, to put a diaper on you, baby. I know you don't get it, but it doesn't feel good for them. And it feels terrible as we're doing it, right? And I think that is the evolution of love. That's the cusp of what we're standing on. Okay, baby. We don't walk around in society with a naked bum, but we're at a standoff because I don't want to pin you down anymore. So can we sit together? What is so terrifying about this? Sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but that's where I went when you said,
no, I love that, because
I was thinking, like, why is it so terrible? But we're so offended by people's lack of consent.
It's the same with teenagers too, right? Like we're raising teenagers, and that's the same thing. And I think that's hard for some. And I just think if you honor the person's humanity, like whether it's a toddler, or a teenager or anybody, right? If you honor the person's humanity, like you want to know, how do you want me to be loved? How do you want to be loved?
Is it inconvenient? Yes.
Right. Like it's not like, but that's the
very much yes.
Yeah, I guess. But then we're talking about something different. So then we talk about dominance and
right. No, but I'm saying, like, is it inconvenient to hear someone's no? Yes, because I would like to do it my way. It is slower. It is inconvenient. It is.
Yeah, it's messy and it's complex.
Not linear anymore.
It's like, anyway. Yeah. Okay. So, liberating faith.
Liberating faith, this sort of feels to me like the sapling, the tiny, tiny leaf that comes after the love, in the soil. I'm seeing a little, I was like, because I feel like that was the starting place, love. Yeah. Faith to me has a shade of trust. I only trust and have faith when I have information to go on. I'm safe here. I can have faith here. I can trust here. I can love here. I can be brave here, right?
Interesting. I love
but to me, it's like this little, the reason why I don't think it's a tree yet, or I keep seeing the little sap, is because it's continual work. Because it's like, we don't just get to be an oak tree. There's always like one little sapling somewhere, and that's the work, right? We can't rest in the fact that I'm an oak tree. We have to continually be tending to that tiny little, even if I am the oak tree, it's the tiny leaf. And to me, liberating faith, like I just see this tiny little leaf trying to be brave, to be loving, to be liberated, to be itself, when it could just be, I am oak, but it's like, actually I'm leaf right now. I'm just a leaf.
Well, yes.
I'm not so good with the spiritual language, friend, but I hope you get what I'm saying. Like that is what faith feels like. It feels very vulnerable. It feels tender. It feels new. It feels green. It feels tiny and small, but so precious, but so fragile. Faith, liberating faith, like is not the shield of righteousness. It's this like tiny little thing that you practically could almost squish if you're not paying attention, but don't protect it.
I love that when you were saying, like, I'm safe here, I'm loved here, I can have faith, right? Isn't that interesting to me? Okay, just in terms of how we think, how that's kind of that, even that seed, right? How that grows, right? Wow, I don't know, so much to chew on, so much to think about, and And here you go off, going off to seminary. So this is a whole nother threshold for you now.
Tiny leaf.
So, this
it's requiring some tiny, big muscle faith, but this is just a tiny leaf right now. Trusting. It's very daunting in North America, in a white dominant space, to be a BIPOC woman who is attempting or is curious about one of the oldest vocations in history.
Right. Yeah.
Like, why should I have faith? It's so tiny. Friend, I might be back in a semester, but I'm going to find out if this is it. No, I'm just saying, because liberating love is allowed to make detours, is allowed to change. So I just say that from a place of liberation and love towards myself. I don't, that's the next step. That's the next belief. But, I'm not going to force the diaper on it. I've lost the metaphor.
Wow.
But yeah, seminary.
Right. Thank you. Just thank you for being in the space with me and for bringing your heart and I love how you see the world, and just how you articulate how you see the world. You know that.
I feel safe to try here. Verbally process, as I said, as Maya. We can't all be Maya. Love liberates. So
that's it.
Take a while to land the plane.
Over. We could just that's it. But thank you, friend. I appreciate it. I love you. I just do. And I like, it's like, I just do. I like being with you and doing life with you. And thank you that other people could today have a little glimpse of that, Tina, that is becoming and evolving and continuing and being liberated.
I'm animated in your presence, Idelette.
All right.
We I think we are each other's animating force.
We do. We are
in each other's company. Thank you for being that for so many years for me, and still being that. I'm thankful.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. I feel like that. I feel that. That's what you said.
I don't remember it. We'll have to play it back.
I know. Okay, friend. Thank you for listening, and do all the things. Go forth in love, and love that liberates, right? Yeah. Thank you.
We hope this episode inspired you to choose radical love. We hope these voices cultivated a curiosity that asks questions. Let us walk towards a new humanity together. We invite you to continue the conversation and join our online community of love, kindness, and accountability at SheLoves Mag on Instagram. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and review our podcast on whichever platform you're listening from to help us spread the word about liberating faith. If you have any feedback or questions, please email shelovesmagazine@gmail.com. That's shelovesmagazine@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.